This conference will now be recorded.
All right, the Town of Cottage Grove Plan Commission will hold a public meeting on Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, 4058 County Road Inn. You can also join the meeting by GoToMeeting. The meeting was posted at the Town Hall and on the website. We have a quorum present. I'll call the meeting to order. You have the minutes of your July 24th meeting in your packet.
Approval as presented.
Motion by Anders, second by Myler to approve as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carried. Next item is public concerns, public's opportunity to speak to the Plan Commission about any subject that is not a specific agenda item.
Chris?
Mr. Vinnie.
We purchased Keith Swalheim's land this year, and there's some of it, it's, you guys got it set up for commercial. And there's some of it, I got some maps here. I can kind of hand them out. This is just preliminary. I'm kind of coming to you guys ahead of time here, and so I'm not going to backtrack later, if you know what I mean. You can see there's two parcels there. One is 35 something, and that's the reason why it's 35 is I talked to Majid Allen at the county on this, and he'd like to see it stay at a minimum of 35. I'm going to keep that part for a little while here. And the other part is what I'd like to go to commercial right now. There's no definite line there. That's just something that we kind of drew in. I want to make more of a straight line, and they got a triangle there. I don't want that. So
That 21 acres.
yeah, but it's still going to be the acreage will still be about that. And
Yeah.
I do have a lot of questions. I mean, I have no problem sitting here and waiting until the end of the meeting to ask you guys some questions on this. If I know you got other stuff ahead of us, and
We can if you want.
You want to answer now or?
I'm not going anyplace. Like I say, I know you guys got other stuff, and I do have a lot of questions.
So on now too.
Yeah, it'd be after Mark.
Let's do it now.
Yeah, get it done.
Let's do it now.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, you guys have to tell me what you're thinking on the road. What, to go in there. I don't know what your plans are for future, because I know the land to the west of this is in commercial, which is Houston's. And,
Yeah.
like I say, I'd rather just do that part right now and leave the 35 for later. And I mean, I asked Majid too, a bunch of different questions, and, he, for the commercial, I asked him about septic, and he goes, when it comes to septic, he says it's, it'd be better if the land which this is all highland that we've got drawn in there. I mean, you kind of know what it is, Chris.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I want input from you guys. So when I go, I'd like to come back here next month if we could and have some kind of preliminary map that's, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my money doing this. I kind of want to know what you guys are thinking is, what size lots, how we want to do this.
I think 1 acre is the smallest lot size you can have, but it can be as big as maybe your potential buyer needs. If it's 5, 8, 10, 12, or if they want it all.
Maybe. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Maybe you could try marketing this different than, because we know what we had with Wayne's. It kept changing and changing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to get some input from prospective clients or buyers, kind of get an idea what they would want? And then if it's not too terribly out of the ordinary or, out of bounds, then we can work with who wants to buy it.
Yeah. And I guess you mentioned roads, you might want to talk to Houston's and see if they have any idea as to where their road is going to be so that they could connect or,
Now, that's a big question of mine. I mean, is, what direction and, I mean,
I could see it coming in off North Star and then maybe winding to the north to get back to Natbig or however.
I mean, like, I talked to Baron Cott a little bit about it, and if, I don't know if everybody can see here, but Dan thought, Baron Cott, or I mean, Kaysen caught, Chris Kaysen, he said someplace along here,
Mhm.
which would be off of North Star.
Yep.
And he didn't know if you guys wanted to come straight up to the west line fence up this way, and then maybe bring a leg to the south here. It is lower right here.
Mhm.
That's why for now, I would like to just keep that. I don't want to have to deal with issues. I don't know about the waterway. I don't know how you guys, if you want the owner to have their half of the waterway there, which would be on the north side of it, or how do you want to, I don't want to give up all the waterway because I own this side of course yet. So, I mean, I don't know what's better that way. You guys, better than me, so.
Well, like for Dwayne's, we have something we had a policy, and that's to make sure that the property owners are responsible for doing any types of maintenance. So that is an objective there, to however that be or is. For the water and for mowing and whatever.
For your detention ponds, that's probably you're gonna have to have somewhere.
Well, actually, with Swelling, you went the other way. And the town is gonna maintain, remember? We had that discussion and they decided the town was gonna keep that one and then we're gonna
And special
charge it because
Yeah.
that one benefits more than just that plat. And the
Yeah.
only way that you could charge those other 3 lots was if the town owned it. and
Right,
special
we're-
assessed it.
Correct.
Yeah,
But we're starting from square one down here. And the other thing is that Dwayne put the cart before the horse and started drawing lot lines before we even figured out if the ground even perked. And we found out that it doesn't in some spots. So
Tonight, we're going to discuss changing the plan to allow for commercial property, a holding tank, if they can't perk.
I don't see any issues with this as far as, I mean, I know there's lime rock up there and there's gravel up there. That's why I wanted to stay out of any, lower land, like the big piece there, it's high ground, but it's flatter. I mean, I know that, I don't know.
It drains.
Yeah, I mean, it's different there than, I didn't want to have to deal with any of that kind of stuff, so. I mean, that's why I'm asking, I mean, I would like to come back with something next month and get started on it if I can. That's why I'd like, if you guys had some idea, if I could just plot out so many
Lot
lots and
size-
put a road in
Lot
there.
size depends on who you're gonna sell it to.
What's the minimum of an acre?
Minimum is an acre.
But wouldn't you guys rather see them be bigger than an acre? I don't think commercial, myself, I don't think a commercial lot is an acre.
No.
I would think you'd want them a little bigger than that, so.
We can think about who Dwayne sold his properties to. They got that big 5-acre one.
Mhm.
You think about, what businesses would value, obviously the one that does the 5 acres and use the area. So,
yeah, we've got the garage, the repair facility. You got that equipment rental.
Mhm.
there's a vet clinic. Is there a vet clinic going down there? Rumor had heard.
he wants one of the ones that are just finishing up in that 4 lot plat.
And like I said, all those, if you take my plat maps out in the car, but they're at a minimum of a couple of acres, and then
Is this Banavit's here?
Yeah.
On the north side, yes.
Yeah.
Then there's a trailer, I don't know who the guy is to the north and the west of that.
Yeah.
Boat dealer that does
Yeah.
his storage. of
Red line.
vehicles out there, yeah.
Is that water in the waterway? Does that go north or south?
It goes north, it goes east
Northeast.
and then north, goes down through Dewey and stuff.
Yeah.
Goes down and hits the creek, which
And then
is
goes-
east of Dewey's property.
So it does not go this way.
No.
No, no, it goes the other way. It goes down and there's a waterway that goes down through the guy with the cattle, and then it goes into Dewey's. There's still a waterway that goes all the way to the creek there.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then goes west.
yeah, because it kind of, want to say the start of Little Dark Creek and then comes across from.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I mean, like I say, if you could help me somehow with a road, or if you had any, what would you guys like to see?
Do you want to look at, do you want me to pull up or you got it in your books, the plan for that area that Mark has done?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The small version is in here, isn't it? Is he updated a little bit, the road? Right here.
Because I think originally we had talked about having the road come out there by Banavit's.
Right, because there was that whole skirmish with red line boats over that.
Yeah.
And that's where he has it, right here. You can see he does bias it a little bit to the north of Benefits land. And it goes up and around.
Yeah.
It's interesting just where the outlet is gonna be for that thing.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing is to, we'd certainly love to see whatever road you put in here, when it reaches your west end, stub it someplace so it would,
So it's not a dead end.
correct, so it'll connect up with whatever the Houstons decide to do over there. And
Or you run a road up the middle of yours and a cul-de-sac at the end, and then you have lots scattered around with 21 acre parcel. If you did 3 acre lots, you technically have maybe 6 lots to develop. I mean, it's a
Here's
nice
the-
road and maybe retention area. So you probably have some options, I would think, just because the road is kind of forecast to go some way, I guess.
Doesn't mean it has to.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you do put a bunch of, let's say you do like you just said, and I mean, if somebody came in and they wanted a bigger lot, they could buy 2 lots too, so, right?
Make it flexible.
They don't have to be,
right,
you can, I mean, they'd still have equivalent to 2, even though they're only, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So that's okay too, something like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Uses the minimum as an acre. And like you said, you probably don't want it that small, but I would say just guessing 21 acres, if you had 6 lots at 3 acres apiece, that's 18 acres, and the balance would have to be road and retention, maybe. And that'll all hinge too on building sizes and stuff, so.
And how wide's the road gotta be for commercial?
I think if you did,
70,
yeah,
70, yeah.
70 feet.
Or normally we're 66.
Yeah.
So the tar area is more?
14, I think, wasn't it 14-foot lanes?
Yeah. I believe that's correct.
Is it 70 for the neighborhood corridor? Or not?
Yeah, those are the neighborhood connector street or whatever that term is, yeah. This is what was, I mean, this is just and Mark maybe should chime in here, but this is just a preliminary idea for that area. And so you
It's just a
know,
road
here's,
going in.
here's kind of a top of your property here. And so at that point, at one point, we thought there would be a road going through the bottom of the boat place and then, you know, but I mean, I guess the bottom line is the road that connects over into Houston's somehow.
Yeah.
Mark might have something to say. He just turned on his mic.
Hi, I'm the town planner. I think I know the property you're
I
referring
can't hear
to.
you though.
Oh,
Now we can.
can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm the town planner. We haven't met, but I think I understand where the property is. It's on the west side of North Star Road, just north of the Little Door Creek corridor. Is that right?
It's, let's see where I'm circling, Mark.
Yes, now I can see it. So the point with the road, the grand plan, and I don't think the town is too particular on it, is to get a public street that will connect North Star Road to somewhere from along North Star Road to the current intersection of County End and Napig Road. And recognizing that with the multiple property owners involved, it would require some coordination, and that it probably wouldn't be developed all in one fell swoop. But I think it might have been Steve that commented earlier that the goal would be to work with you ideally to get that extended from North Star Road to the west end of your property. And then I think, you know, it makes perfect sense to contact the Houstons to get some preliminary sense as to where they would be willing to extend the road further to accommodate future development on their land. Beyond that, I think it does make sense to understand what the market is. I agree that 1 acre lots, while it's the minimum, is probably smaller than most people would want or need in a rural area, particularly when you factor in, you know, the needs for septic drain field and, you know, in many cases outdoor storage, which is part of what folks are looking for out here. And there is one train of thought that you could just lay out 1 acre lots and then people could buy 1, 2, 3, whatever. In my experience, they never want exactly 2 or exactly 3. So you probably end up redividing it anyway. And even if they did just want 2, someone would have to come back with a certified survey map to combine those 2 into 1. So there wouldn't be a lot line running down the middle of their property. So I think it makes good sense to understand what the market is buying out here. It's probably more than 1 acre, but also recognizing that you're not going to get it perfect probably, and that there may be a need to redivide certain pieces of the property going forward. But if you wait forever, you're going to be paralyzed with trying to get it perfect before you know exactly what the needs of the market are going to be.
Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Anything else we can try and muddy the waters with?
I mean, my biggest question is where do you guys think you want the road to come to? You can just give me I mean, that one doesn't show the road. If I'm looking at that map right, it doesn't show the road coming in on ours at all, just up a
Drops down.
ways and then it's circling back,
Drops down
right?
into it there, yeah.
Yeah,
But, you know, that parcel above you is already all developed too. This was from before
Yeah.
then.
yeah.
So that option is not that
I mean,
available as it used to be.
Yeah, it's not.
well, it's
carved in
awful,
stone.
it's awful steep. You know, it's quite a drop off there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got a good
Off
slope.
the field level down to the,
Yeah, to the south. There's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
slope.
That's something to see where they put the Houstons, if they have an idea. We can talk about it the whole time and until we know what they would want to do or have an idea.
Or if they just have an idea,
Yeah.
is it gonna be toward the north part of your property, if anything, or the south part? And I mean, that's a heck of a lot more than we all have tonight,
Yeah.
you know, and it might make it easier for you to help draw your lines, and I would get a big eraser, because like Mark said, I'm sure it's gonna change pretty frequently before.
There was some hands.
Why does Majid want that to stay 35?
He just said to me, it's easier if it stays 35 for now. That's, I don't know really why. To be honest with you, the big field is a pretty nice chunk of land.
You good?
And I mean, it's some of our best ground. And for right now, I just rather leave it alone. My kids want to farm and they don't want me doing the other part the way it is, so.
You know, I'm thinking too with that swale here, you know, where it goes over to North Star, you know, maybe plan on that southeast corner being where all your detention ponds are. You know, seeing that's probably where the water's gonna go to anyway.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
And then, you know, I might,
it's right next to our big culvert.
exactly. And it might be better to move the road up more toward the center as opposed to the south
North.
part, or being correct, south, middle, or north, and stay away from the south end just because of the fact that probably gonna have ditches, you know, run into the, yeah. But then again, I'm sure the county will let you know.
Pardon? Might be something more to say.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. One of the other early steps is that there are what so-called wetland indicators on DNR maps that cross through that drainage way. And what that suggests or requires, if you might look at it that way, is that there's going to be a need for a wetland delineation before you go too far with this property to identify what of those areas, if any, are DNR designated wetlands. And then once that delineation is done, and let's just say for the sake of argument, there are wetlands identified, the county will require a 75-foot setback from the wetland edge. So until you know, A, whether there are wetlands, and B, where they are, it's going to be hard for you to lay out anything on this property.
Well, I wouldn't think there'd be any on the 21 acres because it slopes so.
This whole waterway.
This is an FSA map and usually they'll,
On the bottom, on the right, it says the wetland, the key.
there's really nothing here.
What I'm talking about is there would be an ecologist that would go on site and do an assessment of the land for that. It's not based on any secondary mapping. It's based on a field survey that a wetland ecologist would do. And I'm just suggesting that there are some indicators of wetland or potential wetland on the property that signal the need to make that happen.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I should do, really, is get somebody that can.
Wetland
Delineate,
delineation.
yeah.
Southeast corner.
All right,
I mean, I was gonna say, maybe you wanna do the whole property. I don't know if maybe it's not valuable in doing the whole property.
For the wetland delineation, do it all at once.
Yeah.
And check the waterway, see what your limits
Well, I
are.
guess if Mark has seen some indications of where are those indications in that whole property?
Yeah, it's available for anyone to look at. It's a layer on Dane County DCI map, and it's just a layer called DNR wetland indicators that pops up.
Is there any of those two parcels filed?
No,
No.
no. No. I know there's a tile line. I don't know. Keith used to mow it all, you know that. and,
Yeah.
I mean, literally every week and I always was thinking down towards, I don't know if is there an outlet down there? I'm not sure. I don't think there is. I know there's nothing in the fields. I know
Okay.
that for a fact.
Can we muddy the waters anymore?
I try to say, I'm just here to ask questions, so I don't come 1,000 different
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And I'd rather know what I'm doing to start with. I mean, I don't want to go and see this, like Brian Quam until I have something, somewhat concrete from you guys that
Sure.
Is there anybody objecting to it?
No, I mean, it's been in our plan forever.
Yeah.
With the first thing I have to do though is ask you guys to take it from, what's it zoned at right now, Maryland?
Isn't that
A1.
So, but it's
Well,
gotta go to,
It's probably ag transit, it's not farmland preservation anymore because
Oh, that's right.
it's one of those transition, probably.
Egg transition.
Yeah, one of those probably. Yeah, so you'll have to decide what commercial zoning you want and what uses you would want to ask for. So like if you're going to ask for general commercial, there's a whole list of things that can happen in general commercial. So figure out which ones you want because you probably won't get all of them. And so there, yeah, it has to be rezoned and then divided somehow. And if it's more than 4 lots, it would be a plat versus a
Yeah.
CSM. But normally we would, it's something that's a plat, we would start with a concept plan or what's that word, Mark? Conceptual.
Conceptual development plan. Mhm.
And that's supposed to include all of the land that you own in the area and, how you see it over time ending up. And so that's the first step. And then once the town is approving of your concept for the area, then you would start moving forward with zoning and land division.
And if I could just add a little more, Kim, thanks for sending me that map. So the land is currently zoned AT35, which is in fact a transitional ag district. And the reason Majid has asked you to keep that southern part 35 acres or more is because that AT35 district has a minimum 35 acre lot size. So trying to piece the dots together, my guess is that you would retain that southern 35 plus acres in the AT35 zone and then rezone the 21 acres and some change to one of the commercial zoning districts. But Kim is absolutely right. Once you have a chance to understand the wetland, think about where a road might connect through that 21 acres to the west. Think about your lots. It would make sense to revisit with the town with a concept map before you start a process to rezone or create a subdivision plat for the lands.
okay.
Another thing you might want to think about is that waterway that goes through there, the land that's to the west. That's not part of the 21, but you probably want to have road access to that from your 21 acres rather than from your 35, because you don't want to put in a big culvert.
No, I was gonna ask that, I'll probably dead end that right there. So
Yeah.
so I do have access to the
Yeah,
field.
okay.
So that I do the delineation and then I gotta go about changing it from,
And then talk to the Houstons so that you get
Yeah.
some idea of where they might end up with a road that you could connect to. And then,
Or that will make them connect to.
right,
Yeah.
but a road that would connect
Yeah.
the spot that they would connect, so that you would know where to aim for. Yeah, Yeah.
Made it look like we did it on purpose.
And then draw out your concept of, you know, generally what you'd like to see for that whole, for the whole area.
And then also, go like Kim mentioned, with all the different uses available in general commercial, kind of go through them. Some of them are pretty obvious that you wouldn't want, like power generating stations and rendering plants and.
Yeah, we don't want anything.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
Adult entertainment, you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get
but
it
go
through.
through those and narrow that list down. So if you have people that you may talk to, you know, see if whatever it is they want might fit into that short list that you've created off of what you and just as important, we would like to see there.
That's something, maybe I just let you guys tell me what you think on that, huh? I'd probably be better off, or,
Well, you should look at it. Just pull up the, probably general commercial is what you're
Yeah.
gonna want.
that's what Majid
Pull up the
said.
general commercial fact sheet on Dane County's website and you can see what all the permitted uses are and which ones you would want to be a possibility and which ones you wouldn't.
Okay,
To limit your market. You know who to focus on.
Right.
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
thank you guys.
you bet. Next time, Sylvan Kurt, petitioner Sullivan F. and Rosemary C. Kurt, revocable trust, property owner, petition to renew CUP 2478 for a secondary farm residence at 4458 Bridge Road.
4558.
4558.
You can never get your addresses right.
4558. Okay.
Well, in the mailbox, the mail people had trouble with that.
Renewing the CUP. With secondary farm residents. Tyler's here. He's the one that lives there, works on the farm. Can we make it a permanent CUP or is it
Isn't that what,
limited 5 years?
isn't that what the county even recommended? I don't know if it's actually in here, but it's somebody I talked to said that. I don't make it permanent, but I think you can make it like every other CUP where it expires after 1 year of non-use.
Yeah,
That's pretty
The
typical.
county told, on the phone, told Dale to go permanent, the lady that he talked to.
She told us that up there too.
Okay.
Some,
I have never really seen one be permanent because that's usually why you do a CUP because it'll go away if the owner moves and the new owner isn't using it. And you don't have to worry about them
Yeah,
using it differently or something. But you could.
make it semi-permanent unless it's not used for a year.
That's typically what you see with
Permanent as
CUPs.
long as you're
right.
using it.
You had a house on that before, and then you pulled the house or pulled the trailer.
yeah,
There was a trailer there back in the 90s.
Doug's used to have one.
I had one there.
Oh,
He lived in it then.
so if they pulled it, that would end the CUP right there.
Yeah.
If they wanted to do it.
Yeah,
And then we put, this one, the grandson here put one in 5 years ago.
The first time we were in.
Huh?
The first time you were in, that's when you
No,
installed.
the son did the
5 years
first
ago.
one back in 96, was
95.
Oh.
it? 95.
Okay.
Long time ago.
But that one, they never come in at 5 years, so we had to redo it.
right.
I
Oh, you weren't keeping up on things too closely back then.
Because I know it was there till 2004, 4 or 5, September of 2004.
It's not much to it, is it?
Questions? Yes, we need to go through the 8 standards.
Yes.
The establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or general welfare. True?
True.
Mhm. The uses, values, and enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for purposes already permitted shall be in no foreseeable manner substantially impaired or diminished by establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use. True. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. True. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary site improvements have been or are being made to accommodate the conditional use. Check. They're there.
Already done.
Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets.
Yep.
Yep. That the conditional use shall conform to all applicable regulations of the district in which it is located.
Yep.
Yes. The conditional use is consistent with the adopted town and county comprehensive plans.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see, if it's in farmland preservation, explain how the use and its location in the farmland preservation zoning district are consistent with the purposes of the district. Sustain the farm operation.
Yeah.
Explain how the use and its location in the farmland preservation zoning district are reasonable and appropriate considering alternative location. There would be an alternative location. You want it next to the farm. Explain how the use is reasonably designed to minimize the conversion of land from agricultural use or open space use. It's just a trailer.
It's not on any cropland.
No. Explain how the use does not substantially impair or limit the current or future agricultural use of surrounding parcels zoned for agricultural use. No, he lives there. Explain how construction damage to land remaining in agricultural use is minimized and repaired to the extent feasible. There's no changes.
No damage.
Yeah. So on the last page, the red line, is that the size of the CUP?
It's just the size of the trailer?
Well, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
the-
It's,
The CUP is on that part, that parcel, basically. I think it's- Oh, yeah,
where the trailer sits.
yeah.
Okay. Is there questions, motions, action?
I would move approval of the renewal of the CUP, making it permanent to the extent that they would not have to come back as long as the current residents live or reside in the trailer. And if they do not, after 12 months, the CUP will become null and void.
You want to say a current residence, or can it be a farm worker?
Well, I just,
Farm worker.
okay. Okay.
Yes.
So-
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
future generations and.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
All the Kurt kin.
As long as it's occupied on farm work, someone working on the farm.
On that farm.
Farm employee.
Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah. Well, I said you, Jack.
There's a motion by Andrews. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion, second by Troy. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carried. September 3rd, Tuesday, it'll be before the town board.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item is discuss and consider adoption of resolution 2024-8-28, recommending adoption to the town of Cottage Grove comprehensive plan. You're on, Mark.
Thank you. So this has been kicking around for a little while as we've let the dust settle on a couple of items, including the Houston's proposal to potentially bring sewer to the interchange area, which I understand is no longer on the table. But so now we're ready to move forward with the amendments that have been discussed, I think, as early as the March meeting of the Plan Commission. I put together a memo that summarizes them. I see it up on screen right now. And I'll just rumble through the changes that are being proposed and are detailed out in the resolution that the commission could adopt tonight if it wanted to recommend these amendments to the town board. The first category is map amendments. I list in each one of these bullets which items of the resolution it covers. We've got some tying map amendments in the conditions and issues volume to keep those maps up to date with current municipal boundaries, urban service area boundaries, and the like. I noticed an error in the soils map. That's map 2 that I figure we might as well clean up if we're in the neighborhood. And then the more substantive map amendment, 2 of them, would delineate the 1/4 mile radius from the village of Cottage Grove, where you don't have to have transferred development rights to go above the 1 per 35 RDU standard. We've had a map. We just it was recommended in the spring that we put that right on the future land use map, so it's clear where that boundary is, and we'll propose to do that. The second map amendment.
Color coded
Could you say that again, Chris? I'm sorry.
on the map, that 1/4 mile, that'll be color coded, so it's easy for the county to read.
Yeah, it'll be colored separate from the other lines on the map. And I'll have an indicator in the legend. I think I have it exactly what it would say in the resolution, 1/4 mile radius, something or other.
Okay.
Then the other substantive change to that same map, the future land use map, would be to change the developable parts of the Zilke property to the commercial development area from ag preservation. That's just northwest of where North Star Road changes from a north-south road to an east-west road, and it's shown in that red outline on the map. Kim did reach out to David Zilke, got his green light that he wanted to see that happen. I think, Kim, you also reached out to Larry Score and didn't get a response or didn't get a positive feedback as to whether he wanted more of his land to the east designated for commercial. You see, the plan already suggests the first, I'm guessing 150 feet or so along the north side of that east-west segment of North Star Road that we've been talking about, designated as commercial, but not the rest of it.
I did talk to him. He said he did not want to do that now. So,
Okay. The next set of amendments, if you want to keep scrolling down, Kim, relates to the county landfill. Obviously, there's been a lot of movement related to the landfill. I've had to get myself educated as to what's been going on. Hopefully, I hit the mark. I have attempted in the conditions and issues volume to identify what my current understanding is of the status of the siting of new or expanded landfill south south of 12 and 18. And then put some fairly generic policy approaches that the town might adopt to basically suggest the town's going to keep our eyes on the implementation of the landfill plan going forward. In the same neighborhood, McFarland, as you might remember, adopted in 2023 a so-called East Side Plan that included the lands that they annexed from the town a few years ago now, plus additional lands to their north and east extending towards the AB 12 interchange. Again, I tried to relay in the resolution, you'll see the exact words, the current understanding of the plan and what it means to the town. And I can tell you, as your planner, it's fairly confusing how it relates to your plan, Madison's plan, and your agreement with Madison. So the other recommendation related to this is to continue to urge you and the village of McFarland to sit down to talk and try to sort that out. I note that when you do that, you've got an obligation with the city of Madison to keep them up to date on whatever you might be talking about. The next one, I was asked again to look at the TDR ratio, and I am recommending that you consider a change, a modest ratio increase that from the current 8-to-1 ratio to 10-to-1, meaning that for every one RDU acquired, a landowner or a developer in a planned neighborhood development area would be able to develop 10 additional homes. I think that's probably a reasonable approach given a few different factors. The prices, interest rates going up substantially over the past 2 years compared to what they were when the ratio was established. Building material costs going up, in some cases going up extremely higher than inflation over that period of time. But I think the proof's in sort of the pudding is that, at least in my time here, I remember one subdivision that occurred, a small addition off of N, using transferred development rights. And I think that was, for lack of a better term, sort of an inside job from a same seller to same buyer is my recollection. So my point is that the 8-to-1 ratio isn't resulting in new subdivisions. And it's somewhat unsurprising given that you don't have to do that if you're in the city of Madison, close to you. You don't have to do that if you're in the village of Cottage Grove. And if you do want a rural home and you want to live on the east side of Dane County, you can go to Bristol or a few other locations and develop land without going through a TDR process. This is like a string on a sweater. Going to 10-to-1 seems like it'd be a simple change, and it technically is to explain, but it's connected to a number of different parts of the plan that the resolution would amend. And I comment, I can't guarantee you that 10-to-1 is going to generate subdivision activity, but I can tell you if you went to 12-to-1 or 14-to-1 and then you realize you had too much, it's a lot harder to go back than it is to loosen it up again in the future. The next set of amendments, we had a request related to promoting dark skies with lighting, commercial and residential. I've got some pretty modest language in the plan that refers to stuff you already have for commercial development in the design review ordinance, but also suggests that when you look at new residential subdivisions, you may request that covenants include limitations on residential lighting that would be privately enforced. The next set of changes, I think Steve suggested that we include some additional images that would promote the type of commercial building that we would like to see. He suggested a few photos. I have one in the proposed resolution that he identified. There's also, as I noted when I went through this, we have, I'll say 7 different photos of the types of development images and character we want to see. Some of them were on that map that Kim had up on screen. a little bit earlier on the bottom, and there's another location. So I tried to refer to those two as a kind of a collection of images that you might share with potential builders in the North Star Road and other areas. And then finally, holding tanks. There was a request to, I guess, loosen the town stance on holding tanks, especially as it related to commercial development. The current town plan says thou shalt not use holding tanks for new commercial. I had a good conversation with a county sanitarian a few months ago now. He was familiar with the interest on North Star Road. He had talked to Dwayne Swalheim about his land a little bit. He gave me a lot of good information. First off, that the county stance is that an owner has to demonstrate that a holding tank is a system of last resort, that they've exhausted all other potential options for waste treatment and they won't work. And then the county also requires, in such cases, that there be a contract already signed with a pumper to maintain the system, and that there be an agreement with the town that if the pumping ceased or if the system otherwise failed to operate correctly, that the town could come in, make it work, charge the owner for all its expenses in doing so. So you'll see in the resolution proposed ordinance language that would enable holding tanks as a system of last resort in the commercial areas, but require those two agreements. And like the memo says, I'm happy to answer questions or go through the specifics in the resolution that are before you tonight. Thanks.
Questions? I do. Steve?
Mark, with regards to the holding tanks, did the county offer, did you ask, or may not be any of the above, but is there a size limit as far as the size of a business, meaning the amount of people that can you have too big of a business there with a whole lot of people where a holding tank wouldn't work? Or does it not make a difference? You just keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger, depending upon what the proposed use is going to be.
Yeah, I did ask a little bit about that. I've got my notes on my other screen, so I'm going to try to remember. I do know that above a certain size, Dane County Environmental Health or the County Sanitarian Office isn't involved anymore, and it gets kicked up to the DNR as a review. Yeah, it's actually when there's industrial waste involved, then that could even include auto repair or a kennel where there's waste that goes beyond what typical domestic waste would be. There's not a lot of permits granted per year for new holding tanks at all. He estimated that there's maybe 15 to 25 new permits for new holding tanks with domestic waste each year, and significantly less that would be beyond that level.
Okay. Next. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mark, it's Troy. I was wondering where you came up with the 10-to-1. And then I'm going to branch out further, but I'll start there. What your thoughts on the 10-to-1? Was it specifically based under the current market, or was it, you mentioned something about interest rate?
Yeah, my feeling is that the price to develop land has gone up higher than the rate of inflation, and probably higher than the price of and that has also dragged the price of development rights along with it. So it's not an exact science. I just want to emphasize that it's more of a kind of a test approach where you say, well, are we getting the activity we want with a fill in the blank X to 1 ratio? No. Well, then maybe we need to consider Y to 1. Are we getting the activity at Y to 1? No. Then you could consider Z to 1. I wish I could tell you there's a perfect ratio that if you hit it, you're going to get the machine going and you're going to get enough development activity without too much. But my sense, and you guys can correct me if you feel differently, my sense is that you really haven't had much in the way of residential subdivision activity at all over the last, since the Great Recession, basically the 2008 timeframe. And if you wanted to generate additional activity, one idea would be to change that ratio. Why 10 to 1? Is there a magic number? Can I show you a formula or a spreadsheet that tells you that that's the right number? I can't, and I don't think anyone really could do that. I think it's substantially enough above 8 to 1 where people might take notice and say, maybe I can make the math work where I didn't feel I could before.
We did, Kennedy Hills Phase 1 did use 2 transfers, and they just bought 1 transfer for the part of Kennedy Hills Phase 2 that actually needs RDUs. So there are 3 that have been sold for Kennedy Hills. Just so you know. One quite recently, or I don't even know if it's final yet. So
At 8 to 1.
at 8 to 1.
You don't know what the market price though that they got.
I don't know what they got for that. No, I asked the county if they knew, and they didn't know either. So
That would be disclosed to us like before.
But is it also true that Kennedy Hills is able to develop some of their additional lots without any because they're within the quarter-mile radius?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So they actually have more lots to spread that expense among. So I don't know if you did the actual ratio, but it might be 20 to 1 or 15 to 1 for the areas that are within a quarter mile. If you would lump those in there too.
The quarter mile allowed them to spend a little bit more money for each split so that they could complete the development, so to speak. I went back and got thinking about how the transfer development rates started, and it was to reduce the amount of residential homes in the ag area or ag preservation area. And when you think of that, you want to reduce the amount of land used. Well, if you take a 2-acre parcel and you put a house on it, that's 2 acres gone. But if you try and put 10, using 10 lots off 1 split, that's going to be greater than 2 acres. So that little achievement it goes away, if that makes sense. You're using more land to develop the use of that 1 split. You're going to go from 8 to 1 to 10 to 1. And as far as the market, I understand that costs have gone up and so on. But you would have to do something, in my opinion. If you're going to go with a 10, you need to reconfigure maybe the lot sizes or the development that you're doing so you don't use so much land. You're going to have to reduce the lot sizes. I don't know if that's possible with your septics because you're going to need a primary and a secondary backup. Those are the thoughts that came to mind. I would like to see it stay at 8, but I understand the need or the request to move it forward to 10. And then going back to Mr. Dinkle's development, being in the quarter mile, as I was not for that. I felt that he should have been able to finish up his development as he started it with having to buy splits. And it didn't really stop any type of annexation. So then I got thinking about it. Basically stripped anything we have any control over that development when we got rid of the splits. And what I'm meaning is there's no reason why anybody like Mr. Dinkle or even anybody he would sell it to now go ahead and annex it. Because basically we don't have any there's no reason to do single-family homes. He could bump it up to multifamily. And he would, by annexing it, he gets out of our control. And I got thinking about more and more with some of the requests of City of Madison, what's coming in through the government now, they're gonna start really pushing housing. So I really wanted us to think careful about that. Do we really want to put that on the table and have that possibility that somebody will go, you know, I'm in the quarter mile. I don't have to buy any splits. As long as I don't have to buy any splits, why don't I just annex it to the city? Or to the village, I mean.
Well, they can do that now.
They can do it now. Yep, they can.
But
But
if they
we,
want to stay in the town, we give them an advantage to stay in the town.
but the only advantage they have is to get cheaper land or to be able to develop.
Cheaper land, there's no sewer they have to put in.
No sidewalks.
No
You know,
water.
all of that stuff. It's cheaper to do a development in the township than it is in the
Yeah,
village.
yeah, and less,
And we offer larger lots,
Yeah.
not the 5th acre postage stamps that, you know, is occurring now in the village.
but they can, in the village, they could put up 4 unit, 5 unit, and 6 unit.
Mhm.
They could go up high 4 floors, something like that. That's what I'm fearing.
No one has ever really actually come to the town and says, hey, I want to put up a 4 flat
No,
or whatever.
and yeah, I understand what you're saying, and they would have to have a split for every unit. Would you think? I think.
No, I don't, actually, no, I don't think so. Going back to your original comment, part of the philosophy of the township back by going to the 7-to-1 is the fact to encourage expansion of the existing subdivisions that we have here to prevent the scattering of homes throughout the township.
Yes.
And, you know, Chris's favorite word, clustering. And I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way or anything else like that, but by keeping everything, you know, in our big cluster, so to speak, you know, it makes it easier for us, you know, for the road crews and just a whole lot of reasons, you know, services
Services.
and
costs.
everything,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Still
so,
have a town
the-
feel,
what's that?
but still have a town feel.
Exactly. And like I said before, you got bigger lots and you can do a heck of a lot more out in the township than you can in the village. So I mean, there's certain benefits for doing it out here. Now, for a multifamily, again, it's all of a sudden become this big, ugly monster that I don't know who created it, but yeah, pricing of housing is way out of control. I personally, depending upon where it's placed, would not have a problem with a 4, 6, or 8, 10 unit building somewhere, provided, you know, they can get a septic sited, you know, all the other associated things behind it. And I would be willing to go ahead and find some way to make an exception with somebody having to go buy splits to put a building on a lot, regardless of where it's at.
Or regardless of units,
Well,
within reason.
we're never going to get a 50 or 100 unit like we'll do in the village just because of sewer and, you know.
Yeah, far, was it our northwest corner, some of that land, I thought, northwest corner
Of
of
the township?
the township, I thought, a lot of places that they might annex, it would be there.
You never know. I mean,
In the village or?
Well, you'd get somebody in the township that had land in the northwestern corner of the township,
Gaston Road area.
Gaston Road area, and it's like, well, why do I, you know, even though I could go through the township, if I can annex and get water sewer, increase my density, and still make money or more money.
Don't they have water all the way down to the corner down there anyway, though?
Yeah, they got water up along Gaston Road now. So.
And I don't think we're talking about any local farmer or anybody here. We're talking about somebody coming in that is a big name, like a Toll Brothers or somebody like that, big, that would do something. Toll Brothers, I believe, that's all family residential, but it would be something big.
Mark, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but if we were to be presented with somebody wants to put in an 8-unit somewhere in the township, would our current or the proposed changes to our comp plan require somebody to go out and buy splits?
Yes.
Keyword
Everywhere,
requiring.
yeah, well, so everywhere that's colored gold on the map, our planned neighborhood development area, is where, these development rights would be transferred. Everyone within those areas has the same RDUs to start with as anyone outside of those areas. So, you start, as you have 80 acres, you'd have 2 RDUs, the ability to develop 2 housing units. You could make that a duplex if you wanted to, if you had the appropriate zoning. Your plan supports that. The way the plan is currently written, if someone wanted to do an 8-unit, they would have to buy the rights to develop. In my example, my 80-acre example, they'd have to buy the rights to the 6 additional units to make that happen. In other words, you're not the development rights program is not based on lots. It's based on housing units. For every 1 development right, every 1 housing unit you buy away from the ag preservation area, you can develop currently 8 housing units in the gold neighborhood development area.
You're basically saying 1 split for the 8-unit then.
If it's a neighborhood development. Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to create some sort of incentive, and make it one lot, 1 residential lot, you could change it. But right now, it's based on dwelling units and not lots. And if a couple other things I could just comment on, a sort of I don't care where you guys land on this, honestly, but a couple points of information in addition to that. The reason people annex, it's basically folks that sell their land to developers who have a lot of money in pocket or the ability to borrow a lot of money. And while it does cost a lot more for roads with curb and gutter and sidewalks and sewer and water, the amount of money they can make off the land, whether it's with smaller lots, single family or multiple family or some combination, is greater. So that's why land is annexed. Expenses are higher, but so are potential revenues. So, the move that you did make a couple of years ago when the plan was updated was say, hey, to kind of level the playing field a little bit more, because we know the Village of Cottage Grove doesn't require developers to purchase development rights to develop, is that we're going to nix that requirement. We're going to get rid of that requirement within a quarter mile of the Village of Cottage Grove, and that you guys have adopted that already. So that was just a couple things I wanted to communicate to you as you deliberated this.
And I guess lastly, the gentleman that wanted to put this stuff in commercial, I know he was in there, was asking about it. Given the fact that Donald and Maryland want to put their stuff in the commercial, actually develop it, and the problems we've been having with the soils, I'd want that in commercial. This red area, land that he purchased. I know he was in there, he was asking about it, and I believe I don't know if I told him exactly, but I really wouldn't be too keen on it. putting it in.
It's been in our plan for commercial.
But not that piece, not that red piece.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Don's.
No. I know Don's is
Yeah.
this piece right here. That's the part I'm talking about. I know that he was in asking.
Yeah.
You're talking the northwest, north of Capitol Underground?
Yeah, this little chunk in red here. He wants to add that in the commercial. He wants
Oh,
to change
that
that
one.
into pink. He was in here before with, I think, Kyle Broom.
Yeah.
He wanted to buy that. And he was asking,
just that little piece.
I think that's not the whole parcel, is it, Mark? It's only a part that you think was developable?
That's correct, yes. There's wetland up there. There's, another drainage way. So that's probably a third of the southern third of their land.
You can see he's got this narrow rectangle here, and you can see that it's all
yeah.
polka dotted at the top.
Yeah.
So that part Mark doesn't have.
Right.
He's only got the part that's just green, I think.
Right.
Yeah, so it would, to correct it, it would be about, the southern half to 60% would be available for development. Part of it is already in that little strip that I talked about that goes across Larry Score's land too. The idea being that if you build a road or if you improve a road, like the east-west segment of North Star Road, to justify the cost, and especially if it's assessed, to have development opportunities on both sides of the road is important.
Is that about 10 acres?
Oh,
I think the whole piece is 10 acres. Is that right, Mark?
I'll get the exact total for you. I've got DCI map up. Just if you want to continue, I'll come back to you. Yeah, the whole parcel, I'm sorry, I've got it already. The whole parcel is 10 acres. I would guess there's an acre and a half. The furthest southern acre and a half is already designated. And what this amendment would be adding is roughly 5 additional acres. So, I'd say there's, like I said, it's about 60% of the land would be available. The northern 40% would still not be available for development.
More questions?
I'd like to know what other people are thinking about what I was talking about as far as with the quarter-mile boundary and then the splits. I'm curious if anybody's willing to speak on it.
I don't know if we need to maintain a quarter-mile boundary. How come it can't be just adjacent to the village or something?
Be a what?
Adjacent.
Just be adjacent to it.
I remember when you brought that up to the planning committee, when we were doing the comp plan, we talked about a quarter mile. But then we changed it to just if it touches any piece of land like it did here. And I thought, okay, maybe I swallow a quarter mile. But here we're touching it, so we can touch a small little piece and throw a whole 40 in or something. Yeah. I do have a problem.
Just to be clear, guys, there's no proposed change to the current policy in the comp plan that if for parcels within a quarter mile, you don't have to buy development rights. That was introduced into the comp plan in 2022. The proposal would merely be to graphically represent that quarter mile on the future land use map to go along with the policy that was already adopted in 2022. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't repeal that policy, but there might be some confusion that would be a new policy in this amendment, and it would not.
So Mark, just a question. So I think we were all like sort of shocked that Kennedy Hills parcel qualified. So when you mark that, are you going to mark all, like would that Kennedy Hills parcel have shown, or would you just have a quarter mile line and then anything that touches that? I think that's what people are kind of shocked by. They were thinking anything within a quarter mile, but this was a lot of land that is a lot further than a quarter mile. It just happens to touch the one corner at a quarter mile. And that's what people were shocked by.
What I was envisioning drawing was just the quarter mile line that I think many people in the room have seen, and I could bring out if I needed to here. So that would not attempt to say to do a jaggedy line to show parcels that were in and out, but it would rather just be a pure radius around the municipal limits. Now, if you wanted me to do something a little bit more sophisticated and say, hey, these are the parcels that it actually relates to, and these, even though they've got a little sliver, they're not. I could do that and bring that back at a subsequent meeting. I didn't think about it that way when I got the request, but if that's what you'd like to have done, I understand why you might want to have that done, and I could certainly do that.
Take some of the questions out of it.
Yeah, it would.
Or the other approach is to change it and say that the whole parcel has to be within a quarter mile or, something, so you don't get these little tangents that touch.
No.
I don't know how many of those there are. Maybe that's the only one. And
You know,
maybe it doesn't matter. It seemed to shock a lot of people.
Oh, it did me. I mean, I'll have to admit, like the old saying goes, it knocked my socks off. Because part of my thought process when we were discussing this was the fact that people who have out in the township who might have multiple lots, like back when a subdivision was made, people bought 2 lots. And, it's technically 1 parcel, but it was actually sized for 2 lots, that they could go ahead and split it and sell the lot off without having to buy an RDU. That was my impression of the intent, not to allow a subdivision or new addition to a subdivision to come in, scot-free kind of thing.
And also to kind of fill in the checkerboard of what's developed in the town around the village so that it's harder to annex, right?
Correct.
Right, so you're talking about, what you'd like to see is somebody that maybe had a 2 or 3 acre lot to carve off a chunk, and then with that rule, they could actually sell that parcel off. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay.
And they
With
did it
no
up by
No RDU.
your house
Just like
on
that.
Sandpiper, where they split the lot.
Gas.
That one large lot.
Oh, right next door.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And there is a provision if it's a bigger lot than all the lots around it and it's been there since 1981 or something, they can already do
83, I
that.
think,
But this also brings in some smaller or newer lots to qualify that way.
That's still the biggest lot in the development.
Mhm. So I guess, go ahead, Mark.
I will just offer that unlike some previous years, there's really no pressure to act quickly. I think both Kim and I would like to, move on. But if there was a desire on this subject or any other to say, hey, we want to spend a little bit more time, there's no one beating down our door waiting for us to amend the plan.
Mark, I have a clarification for you to make. In a neighborhood development area, I go and I buy 2 RDUs so I can build 16 homes, but I only have room for 14. Those 2 remaining, I can sell those to another neighborhood development area. Is that correct?
I don't think it is correct anymore. I think you can keep those RDUs to potentially use with the property, but otherwise they're use it or lose it.
Yeah, but I don't have any more property. I've used it all for what I put in. So what happens to those 2?
They disappear.
Why?
I guess I'm okay with it. I am. I mean, I truly am.
With them disappearing?
That they disappear.
And
You
that
wouldn't
was,
let them go to another neighborhood development area where he was short maybe 2 units. So
I just
finish
think that-
filling it in.
I just think that kind of accounting would be too convoluted and, too hard to keep track of.
Although when you do another neighborhood development, I don't see where it'd make that much difference if there's land available. I mean, you're getting some tax versus nothing. You get 2 RDUs that,
He paid for 8 and I only have enough room for 6.
right.
What do I do with those 2?
That's what I'm saying. I think you should be able to, myself, I'm thinking you should be able to transfer them because I'm looking at the tax revenue that you're gonna generate off of it, going into another development. I mean, there's already lots there. So that's my thought.
But if there's
So-
already lots there, the people there with that vacant land can already do it without having to buy yours.
No, they'd have to buy 8.
No, I mean, if
That's
there's,
by 81.
Yeah, before 1981
Well,
or 83, whatever it was.
To get the 2 more, he'd have to buy 8. Or
That's
buy-
gonna be even more of an accounting nightmare if you go to 10. I don't know how you're gonna keep track of, who's gonna keep track of all that, you know, because they're not true RDUs, they're baby RDUs. They only account for one house. And
And that, my knowledge, we have in Maryland are the only 2 that were allowed to do that. And then after,
You know, you guys approved to,
yeah,
we had, but you told us that they had to stay in that area.
In that development.
You know, it had to stay near that, right? Wasn't it?
I think that yours, unless I'm wrong, yours could go elsewhere, but yours is the only one.
Neighborhood.
I don't,
And
that I
then,
don't know, remember.
I remember Mike, the town board, was sitting here, he's sitting there and go, wait a minute, he said, that's not what we had discussed in the past. He said, they're supposed to disappear. He said, if you can't use them, too bad. He says, they disappear.
The
We're gonna-
confusion, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The confusion lies in that the policy changed 2 years ago. It used to be, and there might have been maybe one in which this occurred, where unused development rights did transfer twice. But again, Chris asked why initially. The why that's not allowed currently in the town plan. And by the way, it's at the end of the TDR figure 4 in the comp plan. You don't have to find it, Kim. I'm just saying if you wanted to later on look at it yourself. The whys are that you didn't want to somehow sell this as currency that could be used years later, because you don't print money as a town, and your policies could change as a town where you wouldn't want them used later, or there might be a different ratio or something like that, or the program might be repealed, because that's really at the will of the town board at the time. And the second reason is a little more straightforward, is that the county staff strongly urged us to include a disappearing policy, I suppose, in the town plan when it was updated 2 years ago, probably for that reason and for the tracking concern, over time.
We still have one or 2, right? I think Pam actually wrote something up on that time.
yeah, you were.
But this was Yeah, you're talking about what happened 2 years ago.
What was
So-
that?
I'm sorry, 2 years ago, it all changed, where now they would disappear.
The policy reads, except where expressly allowed prior to January 18th, 2021, no remainder housing units may be transferred by the receiving area parcel owner to a different receiving area parcel, whether or not the different parcel is owned by the same entity. So that except where expressly allowed prior to January 18th, 2021 provides a window, I suppose, if there was an understanding before that date that rights could be transferred twice.
But in a situation where, take Kennedy Hills, where they had all that property and they didn't use up the first segment, and in the second segment, they didn't use them all. Say they had 3 left. They could use those 3 in the next segment because they own the property. Would that make sense?
Yes.
If that would have occurred
Yeah.
before 2021, now, no.
No, that's still in place today. You can use them on the same area.
phasing of the same subdivision.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's,
Okay,
that's
okay.
simply, you defer the use of those until a subsequent phase.
Yeah.
You don't lose them. You don't lose them because you own the
It's the
property.
same person
Yep.
using, okay, I see, okay, I missed that first part.
In Chris's example, if they had no more land, it evaporates. If you had other additional land, you could defer them. That would make sense to me.
Just wondered.
Not phasing, but the banking of the rights would be just a nightmare.
It already is, just wondering where his are banked.
Bank of some prairie or no?
Where, I mean, Chris, do you remember where Pam,
I think something must be recorded somewhere, but I
Yeah,
don't.
She just attach them to that.
where did she attach them? I guess I can't remember either.
It was in her proof.
Okay, that, yeah, I remember you guys talking about it and moving it. I just don't know where she attached them to, so.
They're probably on the notice on the receiving area parcel where the land was subdivided, is my guess.
Okay.
So is this getting, Mark's thing getting reviewed or rewritten for us to review again? Are we voting on something tonight?
You can vote on something tonight if you wish.
I would like to, after listening to Steve, as far as come up with a better documented criteria, you want to word it that way, for this quarter mile. It's absolutely something that everybody wants. It needs to be narrowed down. That's my opinion. That's what I would like to see. I wouldn't want to vote on this tonight. I would want it to be reworked and then review it again.
Would you like to see like what it really looks like so that you would have known that Kennedy Hills parcel, so like all the parcels that would
Yep.
touch?
And then to word in there saying, if you have a parcel in here, fine. If you have but it's actual quarter mile. I mean, they can go out there with GPS and figure out where a quarter mile is. And if you have a 40 or something that just, like there was an eighth of it in there, then it's just the eighth that would be included, not the whole 40.
Yeah, you're basically saying
Then you're not gonna say a parcel.
Correct.
the whole parcel has to be
Because
within
we
the
said
quarter.
by parcel, attach the quarter.
Right, and we wouldn't want, I would
You
want
don't want to
that,
change that.
want that repealed, and also say something more of infill, where Dave Dinkelson was not infill. He was a full development, whereas if you were infill, say you have a 3 acre lot, like I was talking with Steve, and you carved off a 1 acre portion so that they could build a house much like we did in Gaston, okay, that could fly. But for township to, well, I know why Dave Dinkel did it, but I don't really agree.
Well, like the whole farm around us, my dad's old farm, that's all within a quarter mile. So somebody could put a subdivision in that whole area without buying any development rights. But that would actually accomplish something because it would close down that area from the village annexing. So that would accomplish the goal of that policy that I understood.
Has been for sale for how long?
Yeah, hopefully a lot longer, but
Which one, the horse farm?
No.
the whole farm around us, yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, but the problem was that this one out there didn't prevent anything from getting annexed. You still got the whole quarter of a mile essentially between there and the village that could be annexed just as easy as ever.
As I see it, there's two ways to go about refining that. One would be to take and draw a map and just label parcels as all in or all out using a 1/4 mile radius as a guide. And then you would just look at the map and you'd see this parcel's in, okay, they're exempt. This parcel's out, they're not exempt. Then the other approach would be to change the policy to say something on the order of you've got to have a majority in, or as Troy was saying, only that portion that's in has an exemption. And that's a little harder to implement because of land division doesn't always work that neatly, right? That could be the area where there's a stormwater basin logically, instead of lots at all. So then what do you do there?
Well, maybe kind of, I don't know, if there was an area, sorry, Mark, but just sitting there thinking if there was, like you said, at the base, it was low land, you're gonna do that. Well, then you do apply, you take that area that would have been where you could put a house, so to speak, and just move it. If you're gonna do a development, am I making sense?
Yeah, I understand. It requires a lot more judgment later on than what I was thinking you were kind of leaning towards, not you personally, Troy, but the group. And that is saying, hey, Mark, just draw us a map that shows parcels in that are all in and all out, and use the 1/4 mile as just your guidepost. But then there would be no doubt whether a particular piece is eligible or not eligible. Now, whenever we start to draw lines on a map like this and have it as part of the plan, and this is part of the reason we didn't do it in the first place, when there's new annexations,
Exactly.
the line, you would have to physically amend the plan to change the line.
Yeah.
Although the plan locks in on the village border where it was at the point 2 years
22.
ago, right? And they'd have to
2022.
decide to adjust that. I think it's pretty specific in there, whatever that date was.
Was it 22?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me make sure. I think you're right now, Kim. Sorry.
I didn't think that the intent back then was that it should expand like an ETJ line or something.
No, you're absolutely right, Kim. My bad. It was the boundary as of July 5th, 2022, which is when you updated the town plan.
So would that state, even if you were to draw a line for us, Mark, it would still be on the boundaries as of 2022, because that's still the official map and our comp plan, is that correct?
Yeah, well, so the boundaries you see on the map right now in front of you are the 2022 boundaries. I don't know, you probably do more than I do. I don't know right off the top of my head what's been annexed since then. But we would just be.
Is what we wouldn't change the map, or you wouldn't change the map when you're drawing the lines to reflect what the village actually looks like now, correct? Or would
Correct.
you-
If they've annexed land since 2022, I would not adjust the map to reflect those new annexations.
Okay,
Is a 1/4 mile, is that about the length of a 40 acre?
Yeah, 1,310 feet.
So you wouldn't be able to extend that into that Madison expansion area if it hits that. It's probably close in a couple spots. Is it?
Yeah,
we are-
no, right, yeah.
If we're gonna have this boundary, is an 1/8 mile adequate? Or is there some areas where a 1/4 mile, better to use that, in some areas, and then an 1/8 in another? I'm just throwing it out there. Would that accomplish the part of annexation, or is that muddying up?
then you're getting less than a 40, and land, for development isn't usually transferred in that small of increments.
No, you would actually have to buy a split or two in order to complete your development. And do you want to preserve the splits in the township, or you here, or you just
From
want,
the neighborhood development?
well, just in general, using splits? Right, yes, to answer that.
Yeah, like what we did for Don, I guess if you're going up, you're gonna run into more cases where they're gonna run out of land versus how many splits they can put on it.
Donnie? Or as far as them acquiring splits and not having any place to put them?
Yeah. If I only have a 10-acre parcel
Yeah.
and I buy a split, I've only got room for 9 homes plus a road probably. What do I do with that one split
Oh, I see what you're talking about. You're talking about the,
Maybe we should
in
word
the
it
neighborhood development?
up to, so they realize a split is a split, you need one, and you can get up to 8 or 10 or whatever it is, so they don't feel like they're entitled to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what they're gonna base their selling price on.
No, they're gonna base their selling price on whatever lots they got to sell and just divide it over what they are.
yeah, you know, I was referring to all of our town splits in general. You pool them all up. Do you want to preserve them or not?
You only probably have about 150 left.
I thought we had 250.
I thought it was 160.
We tallied them up in 2022. And I've got that in the conditions and issues volume. I could track that down if you would like me to.
I thought it was, because I remember you doing the study. 'Cause
Yeah,
you asked him, had no idea, so you did a small study. You
right.
figured, I was like 255 and 260. That's what I thought.
I wouldn't argue with that.
Action.
I'd like to see the drawing that Mark has and anything, table this till the next meeting. Go over this some more. That's my opinion. My feeling.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. Thank you.
Motion by Troy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anders. The motion was to have Mark draw
Yeah, Mark
a
dropped the
new
map,
map showing
Eligible parcels? Is that
eligible
the word?
parcels and potential instructions to go along with it. That would.
Yep.
Would explain, this is, if you have this land, this is what you're entitled to as part of our policy.
that are wholly within the quarter mile.
Or a majority. Those are the two things he offered, yeah.
I just want to see the map for now and then go from there and look at. That makes
But
sense.
do you want, I'm assuming he's gonna color in the eligible parcels, so do you want him to pick
Oh,
parcels?
I would like him to come off a quarter mile from the ETJ line, period. That's
The-
it.
Not the ETJ, the boundary.
What about the boundary, not the ETJ?
So do you want him to just show the land within that quarter mile, or do you want to see the parcels that are wholly in that quarter mile, or do you want to see the parcels that are majorly within that quarter mile?
I think the whole parcel should be in the quarter mile.
I don't think the whole parcel, well, show the majority of the parcel that's in the line or in the quarter mile. Does that make sense?
More than 51%.
More than 50%?
More than
51%.
50%.
Yeah, I can do that. That's helpful.
Just see what that looks like.
And Troy, you got a good memory. It's 259 was the estimate of remaining splits.
No sweating. We won't have that anymore. Some have been used already, so
Not many.
not many. Maybe we're down to 2.
So there was a motion and a second. And are you going to include in that to table it till the next meeting?
And
He
it's just, yeah,
He didn't say table.
table
tonight.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Mark, before you leave, I'd like to offer my thanks on everything else that you put together for the plan. I really like everything on there, so.
No, you're welcome, Steve. My pleasure. Take care.
Do you have any more questions now that we're done?
You guys don't
Oh,
get
it's
paid enough.
interesting.
I think you guys should get paid more.
Motion to go home.
Motion by Anders, second by Troy. For adjournment, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.